I know a lot of you don't pay attention to football at all during the off season. Your fantasy football season is over. You are done with football until mid-August when your commissioner tells you that the draft is in 2 weeks, and then you start to cram info on a big podcast and try and figure out when on earth did Najee Harris start playing for the Dallas Cowboys? And that's okay. Different strokes for different folks, but you could try something different this year. Wouldn't it be fun to actually stay engaged with football throughout the entire offseason? I have 5 things that you can do this offseason starting literally next week. First up, just because the regular fantasy season is over does not mean that your fantasy days are done. Enter playoff fantasy football. It is a completely different beast, and honestly, it is one of the most fun ways to keep the competitive juices flowing during the real NFL playoffs. Here's how it works. You can join a playoff-specific league where you draft from a pool of players, smaller pool, smaller players, shorter season, and a ton of strategy. You're not just looking for the best players, you are looking for players who will go the deepest into the playoffs. You can also play in leagues where there's no drafting. You're picking players every single week where players can only be played a specific amount of times before they are unusable again. They could also still be in the playoffs, but you've already used up that player, so you have to pick someone else. It gets very interesting. You are not eliminated on a week-to-week basis. You get a fresh start every single week. And of course, you can still do DFS and player props. Now, once the Super Bowl is over, there is still more that you can do. Let's talk NFL free agency. This is the portion of the offseason that you can completely flip the fantasy script. Free agency is not just about taking action. It is about paying attention and actually enjoying the fun parts of the offseason. Last year's free agency was absolutely insane. Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and so many other big names in brand new locations. It was wild. And even if the free agency class isn't like super flashy, and this year's class isn't really that flashy compared to last year, you can also get dramatic player cuts and trades. Joe Mixon wasn't a free agent last year. And don't forget about coaching changes. A new coach can mean a completely different system, which can turn a mediocre fantasy option into somebody with more upside. But it's even more than that. There's so many things that can happen in the offseason that don't get big headlines. All your league mates would eventually know that Derrick Henry was set up for a huge year in Baltimore, but they didn't know that Carolina invested into their offensive line. And if you combine that with Dave Canales' offense, the Panthers' backfield was bound to be productive, and drafting Chuba Hubbard was actually a solid move. There is so much that can change during the offseason and free agency, and you don't even have to do anything. Just stay engaged, watch channels that provide free agency content like this one right here, and you will always be in the know. Free agency rumor season is so much fun. Now, if you have been ignoring the rookie class, it is time to make that change. Rookies can make your fantasy season if you pick the right ones. Tracking rookies in the offseason is a fantastic way to make sure that you know who is real and don't get caught up in fruitless rumors. Remember Tyrone Tracy? You could have known ahead of time that he was going to take over the starting role in New York because his talent was a lot higher than his draft capital because he was a converted wide receiver. And that's why he didn't have a ton of stats to vouch for his talent. The offseason is packed with events to help you get to know the next generation of stars. The Senior Bowl is coming up. It is a great chance to see top prospects in action. And then, of course, there's the Combine. I mean, who doesn't love watching 40-yard dashes and crazy vertical jumps? If you watch the Combine, you would know you would be in on Bucky Irving this year. But don't just stop there. Dig into scouting reports and watch highlights and look for trends. Who's getting hyped and who's flying under the radar? The earlier you start studying guys, the more prepared you will be when it is time to draft, and you will be the sharp. Now this is my favorite thing to do in the off season. I know that you have heard of best ball as it continues to grow in the fantasy industry, but did you know that drafting for best ball in 2025 happens literally after the season ends? Imagine drafting a fantasy lineup in February. It sounds wild, I know, but I promise it is one of the most exhilarating drafts that you can do in fantasy football. Here's why it is so much fun. You are drafting while the offseason moves are happening. You're literally in a draft, so you are dialed in and you feel pretty confident that a player is going to wind up in an excellent position for 2025. So you take the risk and you make sure that you draft that player to all your best ball teams. If you hit on a late round sleeper who gets a big opportunity, you are golden and you could sail to the best ball finals. And here's the best part. In best ball, you draft your team and the platform does all the rest. No trade trades, no waiver wire, no weekly lineup stress. It automatically starts the top performing players every single week. It is the easiest way to have tons of fantasy teams without having to worry about actually managing the teams in season. Finally, I did save this one for last because it's more of a commitment, but it is worth it. You could join a Dynasty League. If you have been playing redraft leagues for years and maybe you're ready for something new, Dynasty is the perfect step up. In Dynasty, you draft your team just like you do in your regular redraft leagues. But here's the twist, you keep your roster from year to year. That means you're not just drafting for this season, you are building a team for the future. The decisions are way more strategic. Do you draft a veteran like Derrick Henry to win now, or do you build your roster with young incoming running backs? It's not just about the draft either. Trades in Dynasty League can happen at any time, and you're constantly looking for value, whether it is mid-season steal or a rookie draft lottery ticket. Do you ever get irritated because your redraft league mates never want to trade? Well, Dynasty Leagues, trading is very common. They're more active, and trading is one of the better ways to form your team of the future. And if you're worried about the year-long commitment, don't be. It is actually a great way to stay engaged without the stress of weekly lineup decisions during the off-season. And quite frankly, it's actually less labor-intensive in season because waiver wire ads are much deeper, so you're not making a bunch of claims every single week. And because the league is deep, setting your lineup is typically more straightforward in Dynasty because your team is what it is. When I joined my first Dynasty League, it is because my commissioner of my home league said, hey, we're kicking it up a notch this year. And let me tell you, it was wonderful. It completely changed the way that I looked at fantasy football. It's a long game, and it is ridiculously rewarding when those long-term investments finally do pay off. Also, do you ever wonder how people get so attached to random players? Dynasty football. I fell in love with Darnell Mooney in his rookie season, and I held on to him for this moment right here in 2024, where he finally got into the right offensive situation to show just how amazing he was. He was like my little baby. Half of the time, we're joking around about holding on to player for dear life, but the other half, we actually do kind of take it seriously and actually care deeply about these guys. So there you have it. 5 ways to stay in the game even after the fantasy football season ends. Playoff leagues, free agency, rookies, best ball drafts, and dynasty leagues. The off season is long, but it is full of so many fun opportunities. The more you put into it now, the more fun and success you will have next year. Which one of these things are you going to try first? Drop a comment below. I would love to hear it. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with your league mates, or don't, maybe keep it a secret from them. You can also find me across all social media at itsteratime, itsteratime. I'll see you back here for more ways to have fun with fantasy football this off season. Thank you so much for watching.